A lot has changed in the year and a half or year and a bit now where we've been going through this whole global pandemic COVID crisis. I think a lot of us have become used to the way things are now, but there's still a lot of eagerness to get back to the way things were. Last weekend in Toronto, there were huge lineups for outdoor patios. And of course, there were restrictions with the way they weren't allowing as many people in, but still, I was hearing things like 3-hour lineups to get into a patio. And it's crazy to think that people will be willing to wait that long just to get back to something that we haven't had access to for months. And I get it, it's fun. It's fun to hang out with your friends. It's fun to be social. I love doing that, and there's a huge portion of me that misses that. But part of me wonders, are we being too eager to get back to the way things were? What I mean by that is there have been a lot of significant milestones throughout history, throughout architectural history, that have changed the way we both live, the way we design cities, and even the way we work. I think the obvious example is the Industrial Revolution that kind of commoditized labor. And then we have things like steel and glass construction, which allowed the proliferation of office buildings and elevators that let us build huge buildings that go way beyond anything we had with traditional brick construction. I think of things like Napoleon's demolition and redesign of Paris, where he demolished a lot of small streets and made huge, massive streets, and that was pretty controversial in his time. And of course, it displaced a lot of people and had negative effects, but now looking at that city, you can't imagine it any other way. I had a conversation recently with a friend about the difference between different North American cities and even the way European cities are structured versus the way, something like a New York or a Chicago is structured, where one kind of just happened, that being the European cities, and then something like a New York that has that hyper grid where everything is strategically planned and there's super density on each of those individual blocks. I think now, especially with the way COVID has us wanting to space out more, I kind of see a reversion to an old way of thinking that's not so much city focused, but maybe more focused around an individual's person and how much space they have access to. So thinking about cities in terms of the amount of available free space, park space, recreational space, I think a lot of those things are going to become extremely important as we go about redesigning cities in the future. That being said, I've had a lot of friends and co-workers that have either moved farther away outside of the city just to get that amount of space and not feel socially isolated and super hyper condensed inside of a city. For me personally, I've really enjoyed not having to commute from home into work. That extra amount of time I have, which results in about an hour and a half, 2 hours each day to myself, means a whole lot. It means I can spend more time doing the things I really enjoy, whether that's working out, shooting photos, doing video, rather than sitting inside of the GO train and just taking a nap or doing something that's not productive. The one thing I feel like nobody is talking about is how do we merge our old way of living with our new way of living? Again, all these moments in history and architectural history had major impacts on the way we design cities and the way we think about the space we live in every day. Now, obviously, we all can't go move away into the middle of a forest or right next to a stream. There simply is just not efficiency in kind of that suburban or rural sprawl that we get, and of course that's why we ended up designing cities. We can get grocery stores laid out or transit laid out or all those kind of amenities that come with urban life. Again, being an architect and working in architecture, my mind is always thinking about how we can change or how we can improve the way we live. I think specifically this whole pandemic situation has accelerated something that has kind of just been inevitable. Internet, email, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all those things that kind of go into the lifestyle that we're currently living in aren't gonna go away. So I think it's both up to us as individuals to recognize that people aren't necessarily happy going back to the way things were. That being said, some things aren't so great, like having to homeschool your kids. That's not for everyone. Regardless of how you see yourself living in the future, I think it's important to recognize that things are no longer going to be the same or the way they used to be. There's no telling when the next pandemic or next global crisis hits, and if we don't change the way we look at our individual lives or our corporate lives and kind of adapt to the new future, it's possible that we just get left behind. I will say for myself, if it wasn't for this whole global pandemic situation, I wouldn't be out here at sunset, having already had dinner, having already done a workout, and then being able to go out and hike like this. Anyways, I'm getting bit by a lot of mosquitoes, so I just wanted to put this out there to say we shouldn't be so eager to rush back to the way things used to be. Yes, there was a lot of good, but we also learned a lot throughout this whole situation, whether it was that a lot of our healthcare systems need to improve, the resiliency of our cities, of our healthcare systems, of our work-life balance. All of those things can be tweaked to make life better for ourselves and for the family and friends around us. I've talked to a few of my friends about this topic and kind of what their thoughts are about the way they think their lives will change kind of after this whole pandemic situation is over. But I'm curious from hearing from you if there's a thought you've had about something that's old that you want to see back, or something that has changed for you personally that you really enjoy, whether it's more time, ability to kind of work remotely, all those things. Leave it in the comment below. I'm really curious to kind of hear what your opinions are and see if there are other people who share the same opinions. Anyways, the mosquitoes are getting really bad, so I'm gonna run back to my car and I'll see you next week. There's a fish. He didn't make it.